Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another special edition of the podcast. Well, I can't believe how many editions of the podcast we've done over the last 3 or 4 days. I mean, it just seems like we can't really put down the microphones. Beth and I, we just came off the racing that you've seen last night. We have just, well, this night when it's going out now. I don't know when it's going out. It's either going out now or the morning, whatever. When you're seeing this, we've just finished the racing. Beth and I are still riding a bit of an adrenaline high, so we thought, you know what, let's sit down, let's dissect everything that just happened, because Beth, in the span of like 3 hours, I think the whole landscape of CVRcade changed. There were two major signings, one possibly majorer than the other, but Casey Schumm to CyclingHub, Jonathan Giron to Cognition. Let's start with Jonathan. Jonathan to Cognition, what do you think of that move?
Well, first, I really enjoyed the interview that you did with him. It was really good to hear him talk and get to know him a little bit. And I am very happy that he went to Cognition, because with his energy and his approach to racing, I think that it's sort of like they have a wild horse, right? Like they're like, he's like this big ball of energy who understands the game dynamics, has to dial in, some of the precision there, and you put that ability under the tutelage of the Team Cognition mindset, and I think it's going to be brilliant. So, because you kind of think like, oh, this guy's like super strong, and he just needs to dial it in. Like, I would have thought he would have went to CyclingHub. So the fact that he went to Cognition was like kind of it made me really happy, because I think he recognizes what's going to suit him best and how he can do that. It's gonna be I think an interesting thing to watch him develop under that team's tutelage. So and it's a huge coup for them too, because that is going to, when we're talking about these top teams and everyone getting better, there's a lot of talent already there.
Yeah. So, by the way, I should address, Victor isn't here. Both Victor and I have been sick for the last week. Vic is getting hit harder than me. I mean, this is the second podcast that he simply just doesn't have a voice, which luckily for him as a VMix operator, he doesn't need, so he couldn't be here. Instead, you'll see some highlights. But the coup for Jonathan to Cognition, it makes sense. Today, Jonathan, yep. He was blocking everybody left and right. I mean, he just has so much fun with it, and he's doing it. Now, yeah. He only qualified on through, so we're working off the preliminary results as they are now, depending on any rulings by the commissioners. But at the time of recording this podcast, I am working on the preliminary results as they finished in the racing today. He finished in 12th. He goes on through. He's a force to be reckoned with. I think for the longevity of the game, and you heard from Moti, it's not just about this World Cup. It's not just about season 1. They're thinking season 2. They're thinking season 3. And they're trying to build like an empire of racers. They're trying to build a core of racers that understand each other, that can trust each other. I mean, on the topic of Cognition, what Louise did today for Moti Pikelny, I don't think Louise got enough credit in the broadcast by Frank and I, but he turned himself inside out on numerous occasions. And this was the teamwork that came back. I mean, Moti in Zone T, like, unfortunately, Beth, I think with the way the racing has unfolded, Zone T is going to get a bad rep, because I think it was only maybe 2 or 3 riders that made it through, but Zone T is tough in different ways, and now Louise paying it back. But Jonathan to Cognition, great move. He just needs more time. He's getting better today, and he'll get better further on. But the blockbuster trade, and Beth, the amount of comments, the amount of messages I got like the hour before racing going, is this real? Is this legit? Because the way CyclingHub announced that Casey Schumm was going there, it was such a mind, like, it messes with your mind, because you're not like, this is a meme, but it's a really well-constructed meme that could be true, and it also could not be true, but it turned out to be true. And Beth, Casey Schumm to CyclingHub, what do you think of this move?
Yeah, well, I think I might have been one of those people that texted you because I was, wait, is there a roster change? I sometimes am the last to know. It was a very clever, like a newspaper headline. You should check it out on CVRcade Riders if you haven't seen it. Yeah, and I made a joke comment because at a couple of races ago, Casey was trash talking me, so I was like, I'm like, oh, if you can't beat them, join them, and so I was trying to have a little fun. No one bit, I was just trying to, stir it up. But yeah, so what I was surprised about, I was like, well, wait, isn't Christian Weidman, isn't he also Team X? So I was like, whoa, let's get a comment from him, because I was very surprised at that. And, Casey works with everybody. Casey's a Zone T rider that we were just talking about. He's gone head to head with Modi. And, we know Casey wanted a higher placement than third over the weekend. So I think he's just sort of aligning his ships with the top riders at this point, which I don't know if it's a short or long-term strategy, because I think a lot of these things will shake out over time. And what information is in play right now is the racing this weekend. So he could be just being like really super strategic, and he's back to Team X next week. I don't know.
It's a brilliant, I'll give CyclingHub credit. They were almost perfect last weekend. They were inches away, seconds away from taking all the money.
Yeah.
And so I think they were smart enough to look at it and go, how can we minimize the risk? How can we, make sure that we have the best odds of winning? And I know Casey has been in play for a long time. I've spoken to Casey before.
Yeah.
Why don't you join a team? You're alone. You've got Christian, but Christian is somewhat independent. He's somewhat on his own. It races in and out. And so credit to CyclingHub for being really, really smart. Credit to Casey for thinking, well, I want to win more money. This is the only way I can do it. But I think this has to be said that it's a shame for the platform as a whole, because we saw it today in the racing. I mean, as unpredictable as they can get in the top three as ever. Quentin, Tim, Casey, when they are together as a unit, Beth, they're unbeatable. Let's just be honest here. It's going to require one heck of an effort tomorrow, because separated, they kind of threw a spanner in the works for each other. Casey, he brings some riders back, he works with other riders, but now, the multi-tool that's Casey Schumm, the Swiss Army knife that's Casey Schumm, is now just a butter knife, or sorry, he's a steak knife. He's a bit more sharp, but it just changes the dynamic.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the way that the seeds are. So we've got Tim, Ryan, Timothy, Termont, Ben, Modi, Jonathan, and then they'll have two more riders from the lower bracket, and then it's Casey, Quentin, Jeff, Nigel. So, they did get split up there, 2 in each one, but that's enough to help each other. But I mean, today when I was looking at the racing, I was thinking, well, we know that those guys are the top racers. You know that they're going to just want to get out in front. They're going to want to, clear the messiness that happens in the chase pack. They want to call their own shots. So I think a lot of riders today were just like, let them go. I'm not going to you know what? There's 8 races here. Take the win. Go ahead. Have the points. I don't need 1, 2, 3, 4. I need, 5 through 12. And what got really interesting today is, the Kayla story and
Sure.
and what was happening. And I saw Allison, she passed me on Temple Run. I was having a little bit of mechanical issue on my end, but she passed me on Temple Run, and I was watching her, and she was pegging away at the standings. And it was one of those things. Over a 4-race Omnium, the scoring can get disrupted, but the 8-race Omnium, those positions, 6 through 12 were kind of jumping around when we got to Dark Matter Velo. So it is predictable at the top right now. And, I hope that some other alliances form to kind of shake things up and make it a little dicey tomorrow. So, I picked Modi to go all the way. And I'm not going to change that. I'm going to hold to it because I like to stick to my guns.
But it goes without saying, it's impressive what CyclingHub are doing. The reason why we get to talk about them so much, and I don't want it to the reason CyclingHub is in the limelight is the same reason the Los Angeles Lakers or the New England Patriots or Team Ineos, former Team Sky, are so much in the news. Like, people talk about winners. People like to have opinion on winners. People have controversial opinions about winners. So you're not always going to have the best possible chat around you, but that's the privilege of being a successful person. Like, the better you are at your craft, the more question marks that are going to be about you. So I don't want that to ever be confused. Like, I think everybody respects what CyclingHub bring to the platform. I mean, they're the most entertaining streamers out there. But I just think the move adding Casey into the team, like, Beth, I can't lie, I was so looking forward to the rematch. Casey was devastated to be third, and now, like, let's be honest, he's got a better chance of winning now that he's on CyclingHub, because they won't chase him down if he's off the front. But is that really how you want to win?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, but again, I kind of like I said, if you can't, beat them, join them. But, who knows, again, if this is a temporary alliance or a long-term alliance. But yeah, it does really tip the scales, and I think we're going to start to see that, if you like, this is our first World Cup series, we're going to have more, and I think we're going to sort of see these things play out over a longer time arc, right? We like what anyone at the top, like you said, is going to be applauded, and they're going to be talking, and they're going to be criticized, but this is the first time out of the gate, and I think it's a lot of uncharted territory, and yeah, it's going to be very interesting tomorrow. I'm hoping that lower bracket, like the one that I'm in. Oh my gosh, Peter Kastrup, Sebastian, Jennifer, Allison, and you were saying on the last podcast, like, one strategy would be just to like go low, or, and go, and I'm like, no, like when you were talking at the beginning of the broadcast, you were like, you and Vic trying to come up with your top 12, you couldn't come up with it. Was it close? Was it close to your top 12?
I have my list here, so I guess I could share it. So I did, prior to the broadcast, Victor and I made our predictions of the top 12 people that would go on through. It was relatively close, but there were some major differences. So for my list, I won't mention Vic's list because he's not here, but I had Tim, I had Moti. Moti did go through in the very end, it got close. Sebastian, who I thought surely he did not go through, he's in the lower bracket. I had Casey, I had Quentin, I had Niels, I had Ben, I had Kayla, I had Nigel. I thought Allison would go through, but she didn't. I thought her consistency across 8 races would really shine, but she just lacked that like lethal edge that she sometimes is missing. Timothy and Jonathan. So 2 of them I was off, Sebastian and Allison, and they were replaced by Jeff and Ryan, I think. So if you weren't mentioned, by the way, sorry, Velocity Vixen.
Let me just like I'm going to go off and not be a commentator. I'm going to be completely showing my Vixen colors here. So
you did well. Like shout out to Velocity Vixen. You were the biggest opponent together with Ben. Like, you really brought it today, Beth.
Yeah, I think that we've been working on some things. It's really clicking, and Ben really raced really well. I was with him at one point on Lakeview, and he was alone, and I was completely willing to work with him, because he didn't have any teammates up there at the time. But yeah, CCC is going to be. Again, over time, we saw Homer do some fun stuff out there on course, but I really hope that right now we have a handful of teams. I hope that more teams come on so that we don't sort of get sort of stacked with a handful of teams. I really want to see rosters that are deep and a lot of diversity across, because I think that makes more interesting racing. So right now we're a little top heavy with some of the top racers on one team. So it'll be nice, I think, as more teams come to play, to sort of balance that out a little bit more. Because Ben's one of my.
Oh my God, Ben today, my heart went out to him, whether intentional or not. Especially, like, Jonathan did it on purpose. There's no doubts about that. Timothy, maybe in the balance of whether he blocked it, but Ben today, he got absolutely wrecked by blocks. Like, he was just minding his own business, and suddenly, bam, 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 and he's just off the back. And Like, Beth, you've been there. Mentally, it hits
God.
you. Like, being blocked, it's fun, but not when you're on the
No, it's
limit.
not. It's fun. No, it might be. So it's never fun, and there's like levels of blocking, right? So like if you're forced into a rail and you crash, there's that, because you lose a lot of time. But there's and we were practicing some of this in Rise and Rip, and we were like braking, and I'm like, well, what happens is if you're communicating with your team, the person who's doing the blocking, it knows they're going to be blocking and knows when to accelerate, but it takes you just the 1 or 2 seconds to figure out that you just, how much speed you just lost and how much you have to add up. So it's sort of like your reaction time is really important, and it's never fun. It sucks. It just does.
Well, I'll let you defer. I'll defer to you on that one. But what is interesting, before we make our predictions based on the seeding preliminary, is that Tim, like, solid all the way through, but his second seed is the equivalent of a 12 seed. Like, in the end of the day, being 12th or being second, there really is no difference. You have to race the second semi-final on Sunday, which comes just half an hour before the final, and the final is tough. The semi-finals are still tough, and so in the end, like, someone like Kayla is better off than Tim.
Well, and I think Kayla is coming back, and hopefully this is a really good timing for her. But there's a lot more racing tomorrow. And the recovery, what people do between now and I don't know when this podcast is going to air, but between the races that happened on Saturday to the races on Sunday, the recovery and what you do for nutrition and what you do for your muscles is super important. And so I think the riders that are going to, again, all so close, but the recovery that they do is going to be super important.
I'm getting up the races for this Sunday just so we can chat about them, because it's gonna be important. The lower bracket, I believe, has got the Summit Islands. I'm just trying to get it up here.
It does. Yeah, I looked it up. It's Echelon, Summit Island, off the top of my head.
Shame on us. I had it ready. I'm
I
trying
know.
to find it, but
Well,
there's just so many posts going out.
Yeah. Well, the lower bracket has to race 4 races, and then the top 4 racers from that bracket will get split seated in the 2 semifinals. So, did you want to talk about the lower bracket racing first?
Let's do the lower bracket, Beth, and also you're in it, so it'd be interesting to get your take on the races. But yes, you have Aquavello first. It's a low skill event. Then you have Cityscape New York. You have Summit Islands, which is really the one everyone was fearing, and then sudden lane change, like. This is tough racing. This is, 33 minutes of racing, 2-lap Summit Islands. It's not the end of the world. Like, half an hour, it's tough racing. But Summit Islands, like, you're just going to sap it out of you, Beth.
Yeah, I remember when we first put Summit Islands into rotation and we do 2 laps, and then someone would be like, they'd throw in, in the Omnium 3 laps. We're like, oh, that's cruel, But 2 laps is enough to feel cruel. It goes by fast, except for, the climb feels never ending when the finish line is at the top there. And then to go from that to sudden lane change, because sudden lane change does, I heard you guys talking today about Country Rally being like a technical course, but it's also a power course. Country Rally today, with the Razor's Edge ability, you could get up to speed quicker, which is why we saw some sort of crashes up front in that one first corner through the hay bales. But with sudden lane change, you do have to keep some power down on that while keeping your head. But I love racing that. So I'm kind of excited to have it in the mix, because it does really test the skill, and all of us are gonna have some cumulative racing because we all raced 8 races. So,
I'm looking at the lower bracket, and it's gonna be good, because like the racing. And this is going to be controversial. It's easier than I first thought. Like, this racing is tough. Like, it's going to be tough. But there's, like, I thought you'd be out. I thought if you go into the losers bracket or the lower bracket or the best of the rest bracket, you don't stand a chance. Looking at this racing, you can still make it. Like, it's not the end of the world. You get a proper warm-up. Yes, it's tough, but you
Yep.
can make it through. And when you look at the quality, I mean, Beth, you are in it. You've got Allison, who's strong as an ox. Sebastian, he's going to be fuming after the block Timothy put on him, because that, on a scale of 1 to dirty, I mean, that was like a pizza dropped on the floor, dragged over, taken up, and then just eaten whole. That was nasty. Then you've got, like, Homer, who's always good on Summit Islands. Vibeke, I saw her post on her own Facebook. She's like, I had the legs, I just couldn't stop crashing. Like, just shame. Peter, I think he's sick. I heard Ben ask Peter if he's going to race. I don't think Peter. I think he may have just caught a buck, unfortunately. Louise, I think somebody from the lower bracket, and this would be an amazing story, could make it all the way through to the finale. But this is the thing about the lower bracket is, like, you want to win, you want to be top 2, but you may not want to be top 2, because if you're top 2 in the lower bracket, you race half an hour later. But if you were 3rd and 4th, you get an hour rest. Like, Beth, what do you fancy? Do you want to race straight back after, or do you want to wait an hour?
You know what? I kind of like to stay warm, you know, and once I like kind of stop, I'm like, I feel like I'm done. It's sort of maybe the triathlete in me. It's just sort of like, you know, I want to keep going, and having a break in between is a little bit of a disruption. Other people might, you know, appreciate that, but with an hour in between, you're enough to cool down, and then you have to just warm right back up again. So I think it kind of depends on the racer, but I would just like want to keep pedaling. I had in today's races, I had a little technical, and while I was trying to sort that out, my body temperature dropped, and I think you might have cut to me when I had this like furry, like sweater on, and it's sort of like, is that her bike kit? Because it looks like she might be going skiing. So again, I like to stay warm, but yeah, I know. And as soon as my heart rate drops, it's just sort of I'm frozen. But yeah, I mean, so I guess people could just stay on their bike and spin regardless if that was the case. Like, so if it was me, I might just kind of, you know, soft pedal for, you know, like soft pedal, like really easy. But I think the more energy you spend is in the anticipation, right? The mental part of it, because you're like, oh, okay, all right. Like, and then, you know, today I was like looking at my maps, like, I had them all handy. I had all the corner speeds, you know, I'm like Lakeview lanes, and I'm like, this is no, this lane's blocked, right? I'm like visualizing it. And that expends a lot of energy, but it was worth it, because that was a fun race. And so if you have a little more extra time to sort of reset and prepare. So, but I mean, come on, Sebastian and Peter, even when he's sick, he's proven he's a monster. Allison is going to come out and show what she's made of, because I think she hasn't really had an opportunity to do that for whatever reason. But you know, she's so fierce, and I just think it's still so cute that everyone thinks she's so cuddly. You know, it's sort of like she would rip your face off, and you know, she rips my legs off all the time, and I love her. So, you know, I'll be rooting for her, as I've always been rooting for her as well. But it would be such a great story if someone from that bracket came through and just went right.
Honestly, like, don't count Sebastian out. I think Sebastian, like, if we were to do a prediction, which is kind of what we're here for, it's what you're listening. You wanna get the take, and then you either want to be praised. If you're Nigel Doyle, I always love how Nigel is polite and goes, "Thank you, guys, thank you." It goes a long way. And then you've got those who are like, "You didn't say my name? Well, watch this." And that's ultimately what we're here for. But the lower bracket, I think Sebastian Kuhn should be a lock-in. Like, if everything is okay and he's feeling himself, I don't see him not going through. But that's kind of what I said about today's racing. I didn't see him not going top 12. I mean, unheard of. So anything can happen. But I think Sebastian looks good. I think, as you said, Allison, consistency over 4 tracks will be good. She just lacks the sprint. Like, anybody can sprint because it's physically equalized, but for some reason it just isn't there. But I still think she'll go on through. Then I think you're looking at, it gets tough, Beth. I think you go through. If you don't have any technical difficulties, everything stays fine. Like, you today, you were so good.
Commentator curse. Do not give me the commentator curse.
Sorry, Kayla, by the way, for making you crash on Dark Matter Velo. I did not do that on purpose. But Beth, like, without praising too much, without, you know, doing everything, you were great today until you had the technical difficulties. You were where you needed to be. You, like, did the right thing. So, bless, everything goes well. But then the 4th rider, like, it could be Louise, it could be Vibeke, because she was up there as well, but she just can't stop crashing. I think the 4th rider, You got. Oh my god, this is so difficult. This is difficult.
I know.
I think it's Louise. I think Louise gets through. What do you think, Beth?
Yeah, I was going to say, so of course I want to get through, but we'll take my name off the list just because it's myself and it would be weird. And I don't want to curse myself. But when I look at that, I definitely see Vibeke. I just know what she can do, and I've seen what she can do. And the same type of thing with her and Allison is just sort of just that last little bit of skill. But Luis is also sort of like on that sort of level of learning more. But Sebastian proved what he could do last weekend. Like, we know what he can do. So I'll say Sebastian. And then Peter, like if Peter's well, I would say that. Yeah. Luis, Peter, Sebastian, Allison, Vibeke,
tough.
me. I know.
It's
I
tough.
just start reading up.
Like, this is like, we're now in the grand finale where the
Jennifer.
incentives are never so high. I think, unfortunately, I think Jennifer and Aaron, like, they're gonna need a week's recovery to recover from the races today. Like, Jennifer looked dead in the end, and I don't blame her because, like, Jennifer's got gears. I'm not sure she understands how to like change the gears to not grind. And if you're spinning 50 RPM for 2 hours, you're gonna get off, and it's gonna be like you've just done like 100 squats. Like, you're just gonna be jelly. Yeah. Like, you've got nothing there. And unfortunately, I think she might fall victim to that. But I think, regardless, lower bracket. Like, remember, guys, tomorrow the racing starts an hour and a half earlier than usual. If you're in the lower bracket, it should be good. Then we have the first semi-final, which the tracks are Echelon, Temple Run, Dust Bowl Crit, Mountain Bike by Jesper. So it's pretty much the box standard Omnium. Like, if you were gonna name 4 tracks that would make up a CVRcade Omnium, it's these. Like, if you want to be good at CVRcade, this is your bread and butter. Like, you've gotta have this toasted, you gotta have it evenly spread, and this is where you really go and make your dough. So high skill, medium skill Echelon, medium skill Temple Run, high skill Temple Run. You've got Dust Bowl Crit, Mountain Bike by Jesper. They're all power courses. Like, this is gonna sap some legs.
Yeah, well, I think that all of those power courses, just kind of before you get to the next race, so that you really are going to come, everyone's going to be carrying fatigue into their legs. And, with this one, with only, the top 4 from each of these brackets going through, you don't have that same, people aren't going to be like, oh, 6 through 12, it's a totally different mentality. Everybody's going to be pushing on the front, everybody. But, so in this one, I think that Jeff's going to give Casey some trouble. Niels is in this one as well. But Kayla. So you want to pick your 4 out of this bracket here?
I can go. I think.
Oh, we don't know the other 2 though. We won't know the other 2. That's the other thing.
I think you can anticipate, like, I'll go with the mindset that Sebastian wins the lower bracket. I think he does. And I think Sebastian goes on through, and I think a second place, I think it goes to Allison. I think Allison takes it, so they would both be in that one. Now, I think with that being the hypothetical situation we're in and focusing that in, I think Casey is a lock. I think Quinton is a lock. Quinton did have technical difficulties, and if that doesn't get fixed, I mean, Beth, you know firsthand how frustrating it can be and take you out of the racing. So that is a worry if you're Quinton, but if everything stays fine, like, he's my favorite to win the overall. Quinton looks so good. Third, Niels looked a tiny bit weak today. Like, it's not like Niels to be struggling. So I think Jeff, like, honestly, Jeff looked good. I think he takes it. And then I think Sebastian sneaks through. So that's my 4. So Casey, Quinton, Jeff, Sepp. I think that's my 4. What about you?
Yeah, I think that's a good call on that. And again, that's the hypothetical that Seb's in that one. Sebastian's in that one. But we have Nigel in there too. And Nigel was pretty consistent even in his practice racing on Thursday. Gosh, it's so tough. And today, when I was watching what Niels was doing, I kind of feel like there was a bunch of riders that sort of just put themselves in the middle and said, I'm not going to, they're watching the points. They're making sure that every time they finish, they're like, I am going to work as little as possible as I can to get in the top 12. So like the positions, 5, 6, 7, 8 were, kind of moving up and down. And then it was like the 10, 11, and 12. And so those are the hotly contested ones. So I think Niels will be fresh tomorrow. So I wouldn't necessarily call him weak today, but I would agree with you that Quinton is also super motivated, right?
Yeah.
He lost out on the bracketed season, so I think bracketed last weekend, so I feel like he's super hungry. So definitely him and Casey, and I'm going to say Jeff, and I'm going to also push Kayla through.
Really?
I want and that is because I think right now in the last like 2 weeks she hasn't been able to display what she's capable of. And we have very short-term memory as human beings, right?
Sure.
We're like, oh, what happened yesterday? What happened 5 minutes ago? But I remember that racer from 4 weeks ago before she was injured, or 5 weeks ago. So I am going to root for Kayla to make it on through, because I know the racer she is. And I think that she's going to dig deep, and she's going to put it on display for us tomorrow. There you go, Kayla, do it.
I like it. I think it would mean the world to Kayla, but I think like with the level of like fitness everyone is at right now, thanks to CVRcade, I mean people are getting fit, like incredibly fit on a bike. If I was riding, chain gangs or group rides outside, I'd be worried if like, how did you get so strong? Oh, it was just this thing called CVRcade. I mean, it's just incredible. And now the second semifinal. Tim, Ryan, Timothy, Ben, Moti, Jonathan, and then if my predictions are correct, I think you see Louise down here with, I can't remember who you, Beth. I think you and Louise will find yourself down here. I think so. And then you look.
Well, thank you.
You look at this strong group, and I think like to beat Tim, especially in this 4 races, you have to get in his head early. But anything can happen, but I think he's a lock. He should be a lock. Ryan positively surprised today. Oh my goodness, Ryan was good today. Now, will he pay for that tomorrow? Could be the question. He looked good. If Timothy can make the finals, like he has to be the red hot favorite. Dark Matter Velo, Country Rally and that. It's not often he lets that opportunity go to win $5,000. Ben Shuilong's good. Like this, we love to throw around the word, but I think this is the omnium of death. Like 4 riders will go through, and you've got 8 riders who all deserve to be there. Now, Beth, I went first with the first semifinal. I'd like to get this take on this group that I believe you'll be in.
Oh, well, thank you. And I'm realizing I didn't root for my own teammate in the last Jeff, because I was thinking he was in this one. But anyway, Jeff was also on fire today. Okay, so in this one, yes, you have it. Tim's a safe bet. Ryan, I'm going to put Ryan. I'm going to put Moti, and I'm going to put Ben.
I like it. I think that is if you were to rank them in like power rankings wise, I think those are the 4 like favorites to be in that group despite the seeding. I think I agree with you on Tim. Like Tim is just a lock in. Then it gets difficult because Moti has not looked like his usual self. If we go by like the Kayla logic of like the rider I remember 4 weeks ago, Moti is right there in the conversation, but I like, as this pains me to say, but I don't think Moti will be in the finals. Like he looked not like a different person. Like I'm not quite sure what it is, the edge, the fitness, the being gone, or maybe like I don't know. Like I love Moti to death. I love like the spirit he brings to the game, but unfortunately I think here in season 1, I think his teammate has got more of a chance. With these 4 tracks, like mainly power tracks, not that much crashing is involved. I think Jonathan has a bigger chance, but Tim goes through. I think Ryan goes through on consistency. I think Ben goes through, and then I think Jonathan goes through. I think, like, I'd love to say you, Beth, but I mean, this group here, anything can happen.
But you know what? You don't want to lose your money, right?
I mean, I've got Jesper points for days. I can spend Jesper points like I want.
I don't want the curse. I don't want to curse. I always enjoy being underestimated and then doing something, right? So like it's a lot less pressure to be the under. It's a lot better to be on the underdog. And I don't think the underdog story is going to be me, but the underdog story, I hope it comes out, because as sort of predictable as we think, oh, Tim is right, or and predictability over time can get boring. Mm-hmm. So, but I do think that that with CVRcade, the way that the racing happens, we have seen it where we're like, oh my gosh, where you're on the edge of your seat and you're like, then this happened, then that happened. And with the 4-up Omniums that we saw, 4-up racing on the Omniums last weekend, like one mistake disrupts and makes it crazy. So that's all it's going to take, for someone is to have great legs and someone else to make one mistake, and these guys are going to pounce on it. So I do think that there could be some surprises, and
I do wonder if the gloves ever come off. Like, the amount of blocking that Timothy, like, put on display on Dark Matter Velo, like, if you have a teammate in the racing, and this is just, like, hypothetical, because we're racing for a lot of money, and I think people's morals and ethics and what people would and would not do gets adjusted when there's money on the line. That's just the way of life. If, let's say, after 2 races, 3 races, you are out, and you don't think you can make it back in, do you ever headhunt another racer? Like, let's say, hypothetically, you are Moti and Jonathan, and you've seen the previous zone, and you have Sebastian there, you have Allison there, your teammate from the lower bracket, they've qualified, and they're in the finale, and you're out. Like, Moti and Jonathan, they're like, well, mathematically, like, percentage-wise, we can't make it. Do you ever headhunt a Tim Fulford? Do you ever go, right, the only way we can win is to make sure he doesn't make the grand finale?
Well, I think that it's sort of hard to understand someone's motivation, right? Because what we're seeing in a game, what we're seeing as commentators, might be motivated in a totally different way. Like, I'll do that where I'll say, "Hey, when you did this," and they're like, "Well, I saw that the points were this, and if I took the points off away," so there's a subtle head hunting going on anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like, is it like overtly like, I'm going to stick it to this guy because this is what they did to me 7 weeks ago on a Tuesday in Zone L, and I have that, trust me.
It's almost like people have it tattooed on their arm. They're like, "Oh, yep, here's my little diary."
Yeah. I mean, how can you not? I mean, and I was joking earlier when I was getting blocked, when you're having a good day, it sucks, right? But the thing is it's part of the racing. You've got position yourself. It's part of being heads up. It's part of anticipating the moves. And shoot, all of these teams want to come out and win. The philosophy might be. We were talking earlier about Cognition and this sort of teaminess, and the CyclingHub the teaminess, but maybe not the same pooling. We don't know what they're doing for pooling, right? So they could be, they could have their hitman and be like, doesn't matter because if Tim wins the whole thing, my cut is whatever, right? So, so I think that more, the more teams that we see kind of come in, we're going to see their sort of style of racing. But headhunting, I think it will be a little more subtle than that. But people will take points away from other people in whatever way they need to advance the good of their team. And I think that that's how we should expect stuff to play out.
The funniest thing is, though, when people try and justify that they didn't block. When it comes to all this, people, I understand this. They get very offended when us as commentators, me, Beth, Frank, we go, "Oh, that's an amazing block," or "Maybe that's an unethical block." And they're like, "I just changed lanes. I didn't block on purpose." We don't know. We're making an educated guess based on what the tools we have available. We are not inside your head. We are not you. Right. And so when you conveniently change a lane because it suits you, we don't know. You may not have your rear view camera. Right. I think it's Beth, people assume we're superstars. Just because we can commentate, they're like, "You called it wrong. How did you do that?" "I obviously didn't block." I'm like, "You weren't on stream. I wasn't talking to you. I'd gladly apologize if I called it wrong." But anyway, the whole blocking thing, I can't wait to see what happens with season 2, because I do think something needs to be done. I do think that a heavy block, a blocked rocket maneuver, probably shouldn't be available in the game. But anyway, we'll see. Honestly,
well, we do hear, and it has been said out loud. I think Frank mentioned the quantum explosion, right? So that if the speed differential is too great, right? So I mean, maybe you're trying to control the speed on the front. Maybe you're, and this people do this, right? The lead pack goes, and then I'm like, bye-bye, and I'm in the chase pack. And you're waiting for the person on the front to try to close down that gap. It's 2 seconds, go. But you don't want to, pardon me, you don't want to step out into the draft yourself and go do it. And, so you're waiting for someone to move. And then the people are just sort of just slowing down ever so much, and then the distance grows bigger and it's harder to capture. So that's kind of, it's just a subtler maneuver to let the front people get away. And, that happens all the time. It's sort of like, if you want my draft, take it, but I'm going to like slow down enough so that the speed differential, the quantum explosion wouldn't take an effect in that thing. It's just the like brake checking. And that's, I think, is a different thing that what we're seeing.
It's so realistic though, because in real life, like, this happens all the time in real life, but the issue is not every Cat 4 is being broadcasted live on Mixer. You don't have like an instant replay of somebody letting a gap go in a crit race in Arizona, California, Nebraska, Massachusetts. When you have all these local crits, this happens all the time. Nobody really gets scrutinized or crucified because there's no one there with a helicopter above or a motorbike with like camera going, let's bring that up on the instant replay. Oh, Frank, what did you think about that block? I mean, that'd be amazing, but that's the downfall of cycling. Now, that happens on Cade, which is why it gets like really scrutinized, because you see it all the time. It makes the gaming great, but that aside, the finale. Lakeview Lanes, once more. I think that was great today. I really thoroughly enjoyed watching that.
That course.
It was good, right? Course. The wind was amazing. It was so technical.
I have to say that that is one of my favorite courses, and people are like, oh, well, is it because it's flat? And it's like, with wind, it doesn't feel flat, first of all. But it was, you really had to think about, what side of the rider, I'm like, Ryan pulled up next to me and he was able to have some of the draft, and, and then you're thinking, okay, well, now we're in the middle and we got to get to the outside, and the communication that was happening in the game, at least with our team, was like, I'm going to go right, I'll go left, or like, 2 to the left, and so that you can kind of move together. There's just enough lanes to do it. There's enough open, there's enough obstacles. It's super fun to race. So I think we're going to see a lot of team tactics if teams are together. So what do we say? What's our final 8 Omnium? We said Sebastian.
Oh, that's a tough one to get up.
Well, whatever. We're making it up.
No, I'll give it off the top of my head. I think it's Sebastian, Casey, Tim, Ryan. Oh, I need to get the list up again. But there's a few more in there. Let's see if I can get it up. Quentin is another one. Yep. But I think Ben might be in there as well. And then there's an 8th rider that I'm totally blanking out on.
Modi?
No, I don't think. I think Jonathan. I think I have Jonathan as my 8th rider going on too.
I have Kayla. All right, and then 8. Okay, so in terms of those riders, there's, again, CyclingHub has the favor of
3.
3. So they would have, and those are 3 pretty solid bets. So again, they are going to be able to demonstrate some team play. So what I would recommend is anybody who's not CyclingHub is to form some coalitions. Just go ahead and create your own channel.
I'm not sure that's any better. I'll get on the record here and say I am not sure the solution to the super team is to create another super team. Now, I'll come to the defense of CyclingHub and say neither.
Some cooperation. Some cooperation. There's got to be some. I mean, when you're in races, you cooperate, and we see that. Casey's the best example of that, cooperating.
What's the best example?
Right.
Sorry. But I think, Beth, when you look at that, I think like the proposed finale list that we have, start list, I think that showcases just how instrumental Casey's team swap is. Casey, as a CyclingHub member in that proposed top 8, oh my goodness, like that.
It's just the balance.
Yeah, like that. They are outright favorites. Like, who's gonna chase down an attack if 2 riders get off the front? Quentin, Tim, or Casey, whoever's left can just play enforcer on the front. Now, imagine Casey as a Team X rider. Now he's alone. He can help close down the gaps, and suddenly both Tim and Quentin need to be in a break alone. But having that 3rd rider, and I think that's really where like the unfortunate CyclingHub are clever. They want to maximize their winning opportunity. But that's why I think like the finale is going to be tough for anybody else. Now, you could make a super team, you could make alliances, but please just let it be for this one, because as a streamer, as a broadcaster, I really don't want the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Golden State Warriors for the rest of my life, or like whatever other super teams are left now. I like the diversification. I like it not being Swift. I like it not being, Leandro Messinio, Scotty Wise, the same people winning every time. That's why I like CVRcade.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I am going to be hoping both of my Jeff and Ryan get through. I think that they really work well together. I'm hoping that Modi and maybe Luis comes from the lower bracket. I mean, wouldn't that be nice if you had Modi and Luis, Ryan and Jeff? Because then you have some compadres. Then it kind of helps balance it out a little bit, right? So then it's not sort of like a this team versus that team or this group segment. But if you had a couple Cognition riders, Seb, right? Seb and could be Seb, Modi, and Luis. Though, think about those three, and then Jeff and Ryan, right? Because they were on fire today. So anyway.
Now I know. Like, the reason why Beth and I are fantasizing like this about a potential finale is because we are the commentators. Now, what we enjoy the most is exciting gameplay. Like, if our job is easy, the stream is good. If our job is hard, which means we have to try and make something exciting that may not always be exciting, then the stream isn't as good. So, I would love to see all 5 CyclingHub members in the finale. Like, they deserve it. They're amazing. They're so good on the platform. They spend the time and effort. But from an entertainment standpoint, from my job as a commentator with Frank, making it comfortable and making it a fun finale, I want the storylines to clash. Beth, we haven't worked our butts off in the last 9 weeks commentating 3 zones, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays for it to have a boring finale. I really want the climax to match what happened last weekend. The Dark Matter Velo incident will go down in history. That is the defining moment. That's the turning point of CVRcade esports. That is when I think it clicked for everybody. Oh my god, this is addicting. Oh my god, this is real life. We're not just in a blob anymore. We're not just chasing pixels. We are the pixels. We are solid. Actions have consequences, and the racing is amazing. But Beth, I think we're running very long on this podcast. So anyone who's made it to this point, I thank you so much. There's so much to talk about because today is another flagship day, the turn day of the Cade world. One rider, the biggest competitor joining the biggest team. Just has to be talked about. So, looking at the finale, we never got past Lakeview Lanes. There's Dark Matter Velo is up next. Can't wait. There's Fantastic Alien Sea. That's going to be good. And then there's Country Rally. Now, Dark Matter Velo, there's a few riders that do really well on it. Quinton, Tim, Timothy. Ben is okay, but he lacks, the consistency. Sebastian, Casey, they struggle a tiny bit. So, that I would give to Quinton. I would give it to Tim. I'd give it to Timothy if he makes it. Lakeview Lanes. I mean, Beth, you raced it. How do you think that favors anyone?
It's power and technical. So and it's early, so people are going to spend a lot of energy there. But Seb is totally able to take that. I know we didn't say that Niels was going to make it through. I've seen Niels do a really good job on that race, but yeah, I would say Seb could do that. Timothy has a little less of he's less of the type of endurance rider. He's going to do well on Country Rally later on. Mm-hmm. And that's what's really neat about the diversity of the races is it plays to different skills. But as you said, there are some people that have dedicated so much time to get good at all of it and to be that Swiss Army knife of racing and to be able to just bring their best selves to the different tracks. Was that the best non-answer?
I think the way in which the finale is set up, 3 of the tracks, I would say Team CyclingHub have the best 3 riders on it. Dark Matter Velo, Quinton, Tim, Timothy. Fantastic Alien Sea, Casey, Quinton, Tim. Country Rally, Timothy, Quinton, Tim, and Casey. Guys, anyone out there racing tomorrow and you get to the finale, you have to be the instigator. Frank said it so well in the broadcast today.
Right.
Why do you just let Tim... this is going to sound really wrong because I know you don't do it on purpose, but Tim gets off the front and he makes you hurt. The way to beat that strategy is to preemptively get off the front and force them to do work. Now, it's a risky move, but the odds... Tomorrow is going to be amazing. It can go any way. You've got to perform under pressure, but it's so heavily favored towards CyclingHub with the set of races that are on the final.
Yeah, it is. It is, and but I am such an optimist. I'm such a and I know, and I should be objective, right? And it's hard for me not to be objective. One, because I'm racing. Two, because I like all of these people that we're talking about. Like I like them all, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been voting for Modi to go through because of the racer that he's been. I'm pulling for Kayla because of the racer she's been. Cycling Hub, amazing. They dedicate so much time to it. They deserve, as you said, they deserve, all of the glory that they've been getting. And then like Nigel and Peter and Sebastian. I mean, if I didn't say your name, I just want you to know I love you all, and I love you all for racing. We are not in your heads. We can't read your minds, which is what makes it exciting for us. And yeah, I'm just excited for the racing tomorrow. But I do want an underdog story. I don't know why. I don't know why. I just want one. I want someone to come that you don't expect and just kill it tomorrow. So
I wonder if you were to do, like, this could be in the future of CVRcade. Like, betting on CVRcade could be so much fun. It could be infuriating, but it could be so much fun. Like, bring back Cycle Fantasy. I'd spend hours.
Yes!
Like,
yes, Cycle Fantasy. What an incredible. We should talk to some people about that, because that like it's if anyone listening that doesn't know what that is, it's sort of like fantasy football for CVRcade racing, right? I mean, and it's you get to pick your own roster and who's going to win, and like yes. I love that.
I got second once on a Swift CVR World Cup. I only lost to Eric Slang, so damn you, Eric Slang, for taking the first spot. But that's so much fun. I mean, having these discussions, like, we've spent the last 50 minutes, Beth and I, talking about CVRcade. 50 minutes. It's gone by like that. This is 50 minutes long.
Okay.
Like crazy. So here in the falling rope, I just want to say to everybody racing, you're amazing. If you ever feel like we're doing you a disservice here on the podcast, do reach out. Like, Beth and I are very approachable. Like, just say to us, hey, I didn't like this comment or whatever, but we're totally open for it, and that's why we do these things. So do come to us. And on that note, Beth, it's time to offend about 29 racers and pick one racer that you think you're going to win the $5,000 tomorrow.
I am not going to change. I'm gonna stick with my prediction because I'm stubborn and I'm a Taurus, and I picked Modi 3 days ago, and I'm just gonna stay with it. I'm just gonna ride with it.
I think it's tough because Quinton is the favorite. I think Tim has had his moment. I think as a team leader, I think the smart thing to do is to share the glory, is to let have good harmony amongst the team, and I'm sure they must have some sort of money sharing strategy, otherwise Casey wouldn't join. So I'm sure it goes around. So Quinton was the favorite, but now that Casey's on Team CyclingHub, I do have this tingling sensation that he's like a double agent, and he only took on the colors for the last second to go, ha! Gotcha! Takes off his mask.
He did do that thing. He did do that,
Little do you know, underneath that one, there's a third jersey that's Team X all along. And so, I really, you never should change. The rules or the laws of the Monty Hall problem, they don't really apply here. You should never really change. So, I will break that law, though. Quinton was the favorite, but Casey now on the team, I think Casey wins it because they won't chase him down. I think Casey, he's a smart racer. Quinton is the favorite. I should really stick with Quinton. But with this move, I now think Casey is better favorite odds-wise. And on that note, everybody, I mean, amazing day of racing today. It's just shaking up the whole world of CVRcade. So for everybody who raced today, for everybody who, by the way, bought an events pass, you rock. CVRcade is free to play. You don't have to, but you choose out of your own goodwill. And I hope when season 2 comes around that you will get it again, because Beth, I want to do this for the rest of my life. I love esports, I love cycling, and I love the two combined. And this never feels like job. It never feels like work. I turn on the stream, and today, the 2 hours, it went by so quick. It's so much fun. The community is the best I've ever been involved with. So Let's make this amazing. Like 2019 has been fun. 2020, I'm sure we'll have more podcasts before then. Let's make it amazing. To everyone racing tomorrow, good luck. I'll see you in the stream. Beth, I know you'll be racing as well. Be your own underdog story. You want to see an underdog story? You can do it. Any final words, Beth, before we head off?
Ditto what you said. Ditto what you said. Thanks for watching, everybody.